this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
What prompted you to take military off the table for Greenland?
Well, we'll see what happens. The military's not on the table. I don't think it'll be necessary. I really don't.
Okay.
I think people are going to use better judgment. They'll use their best judgment, and I don't think that will not be necessary.
You're listening to the 47 Morning Update with Ben Ferguson.
Good Thursday morning. Nice to have you with us on the 47 Morning Update. And we've got one big story. Donald Trump in Davos doing exactly what the media said was impossible. Get a deal done over Greenland. They said he was going to start World War III. He was going to invade, kill innocent people, and that the sanctions were going to destroy the economy. Well, guess what? The sanctions are off the table. A deal has been done that the president says will be for forever. So will they correct the record? We've got all of what they had to say, and we call them out. It's the 47 Morning Update, and it starts right now.
Story number one.
President Donald Trump has announced there is a deal. Yes, the Democratic Party and the media claiming that Donald Trump was going to invade Greenland, go to war, and just start killing innocent people. Yeah, they were lying to you. It was not actually on the table, and this is exactly what they do every time they have a chance. So what actually happened? Well, the framework for a future Greenland Arctic deal has been reached, something Democrats and the media also said was not going to happen this week. President Trump announced that after a very, quote-unquote, productive discussion with NATO Secretary General and the U.S. and NATO allies have agreed on a framework for a future deal related to Greenland and the broader Arctic region. Trump described this framework as something that could be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations if it is successfully finalized. The president, talking about this deal with CNBC, had this to say.
Well, we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland, and it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The market, 600 points, getting back a lot of some of the nervousness we had in the last couple of days. The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February 1st.
No, we took that off because it looks like we have pretty much a concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal...
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line. But the Secretary General of NATO and I and some other people were talking, and it's the kind of a deal that I wanted to be able to make.
Where does Denmark, did they weigh in on what they want, what they would agree to?
Well, I assume they did because he very much represents, he's a strong leader. Mark, you know Mark Rutte. And he, I assume he's been speaking to them. He's been speaking to all of them.
Are mineral rights involved? Is ownership involved? Did the Golden Dome sway people?
I don't want to say yet, but...
The Golden Dome was very compelling today when you talked about that.
Yeah, the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in mineral rights, and so are we.
It's not specific enough to know at this point how long this lasts, whether it's...
Forever.
Forever.
It'll be forever.
For Greenland at this point.
Yeah. Forever.
That's staggering.
That's better than a 99-year.
This is what, 2 hours after.
It's better than the Obama deal with the famous Iran nuclear deal with a 9-year deal. No, this is forever.
Forever, which is exactly what the President of the United States of America wanted to accomplish. Why? Because Russia and China were clearly looking at doing the exact same thing. They wanted to have the reach to be able to come after the United States of America. China had publicly said back in 2009 and again in 2016 very clearly that they wanted to have dominance in the Arctic. Now, President Trump confirming the deal he's reached with Europe isn't only Greenland, it's the entire Arctic. Trump's about to go down in history books as squashing our adversaries and, most importantly, their Arctic influence and the race to make sure that America is always safe. Now, you also heard the president there talk about tariffs, and those threats have been withdrawn, something the media, again, was losing their minds over the last 24 hours. And that's just part of the positive outcome from these negotiations. Donald Trump canceling the threat of imposing new tariffs on several European allies that had opposed his previous Greenland approach. This move eased the economic tensions with key NATO partners and removed the possibility of a near-term trade confrontation tied specifically to the Greenland issue. Again, that's exactly why the president was using these tariffs as a real threat. And then military force, something that the media lied about. Well, guess what? It has been explicitly ruled out. In his address, Donald Trump made it clear that the U.S. would not use military force to acquire Greenland, an announcement that helped reassure international audiences that diplomacy, not aggression, is the path forward in the Trump doctrine. Take a listen to President Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos and what he had to say when he was asked about taking the military action off the table.
What prompted you to take military off the table for Greenland?
Thank you, President. Thank you, President.
We'll see what happens. The military's not on the table. I don't think it'll be necessary. I really don't.
Okay.
I think people are going to use better judgment. They'll use their best judgment, and I don't think that will not be necessary.
That will not be necessary. This killing the conspiracy theory by the radical left and also the media that Donald Trump was going to invade a nation and he was going to kill a bunch of innocent people. So let's go back to the very beginning. Donald Trump said he was going to keep America safe. He wanted to make sure that we kept Russia and China out of the Arctic. Trump emphasized that his negotiations and meetings at the World Economic Forum in Davos were constructive. He said officials highlighted that continued talks with NATO and Greenland's partners would focus on peaceful cooperation, the exact opposite of what the media was reporting. And then this was even bigger than Greenland. It was a broader Arctic cooperation. While specifics are still being worked out, the White House said, it was clear the president framed the discussions as involving Arctic security and strategic collaboration with potential benefits for all involved countries if implemented respectfully. So today's developments are truly historic. They're centered on Trump securing a negotiation framework with NATO allies, something that the media said was not possible. Stepping back from the tariff threats, using it as leverage to get the deal done, something that, of course, the media lied about as well, and reaffirming a non-military diplomatic approach towards Greenland. Again, the left and the media said it was going to be World War III. This represents a shift towards cooperative dialogue on Arctic issues and, as they said at the meeting, de-escalation of the recent tensions surrounding the entire topic. Now, this is exactly why Donald Trump is so good at getting these deals done. He shows strength, and then he gets the deal done in the best interests of the United States of America. Now, the president isn't done there. Donald Trump is saying it's time to get rid of the UN in many ways, even some of what NATO is doing. President Trump in Switzerland saying this about what he wants to create. He wants to create something that's a little bit different, a board of peace. And of course, the media losing their minds over this new idea from President Trump.
Everybody wants to be on it. But, yeah, I have some controversial people on it, but these are people that get the job done. These are people that have tremendous influence. And if I put all babies on the board, there wouldn't be very much. So he was invited. He's accepted. Many people have accepted. I don't know of anybody that hasn't accepted. But it's going to be great. I think the Board of Peace will be the most prestigious board ever, and it's going to get a lot of work done that the United Nations should have done. And we'll work with the United Nations, but the Board of Peace is going to be special. We're going to have peace. It started off with Gaza, the Middle East. We've got peace in the Middle East, tremendous peace in the Middle East. Nobody thought that was possible. And that happened by taking out the Iran nuclear threat. Without that, it could have never happened. But the board is going to be, I think, really fantastic. And I think it'll be the most prestigious board of any board ever in world history. Thank you very much.
You hear the president there talking about this. And again, why are so many people upset about it on the left? It's really for one simple reason. They're no longer in control. The United Nations is all about anarchy and chaos and protecting the bad guys. If you don't believe me, just look at all of the cases where the United Nations has done a horrific job of protecting innocent people. A perfect example of why the president's going to put together this Board of Peace is because the Security Council of the UN is basically feckless. They have veto power that protects bad actors. Authoritarian regimes sit on UN councils that are actually meant to police human rights. And if you don't believe me, let me just give you some of the basics of how big of a failure the United Nations has been. Look at the Rwanda genocide back in '94. You had more than 800,000 that were slaughtered in 100 days. What was the UN's response? UN peacekeepers were actually reduced, not reinforced, after the killings began. Repeated warnings from UN Commander General were ignored, and the aftermath was very clear. The UN even later formally admitted failure, but it's a clear example of a catastrophic inaction by the UN. Look at China, 2017 to right now. More than 1 million Muslims have been detained, forced into labor, and have had family separations. Years of delay by the UN before issuing a mild human rights assessment in 2022. But what have they done towards China? Nothing. No sanctions and no binding resolutions. China's Security Council power and economic leverage have muted all actions, in essence, from the United Nations. Look at Syria and the Assad regime and the atrocities from 2011 until he was finally forced out. You had chemical weapons that were used, mass civilian killings, torture in prisons. And what was the UN's response? Dozens of Russian and Chinese vetoes blocked all accountability. Investigations even acknowledged crimes were committed, but there was no enforcement. The UN paralysis, when a permanent Security Council member protects an ally, a bad actor, happens almost every time. Look at Myanmar and the ethnic cleansing there that happened from 2016 to 2018. You had mass killings, rape, villages that were burned. More than 800,000 refugees fled to Bangladesh. What was the UN's response? Strong support in a report after the fact, but no prevention and minimal consequences for those involved. Look at Iran and the protest crackdowns, not just now, but in 2009, 2019, in 2022. And now, protesters killed, tortured, the internet shut down. And what was the UN's response each and every time? Well, barely even a statement and a fact-finding mission with no decisive action afterwards. Iran continues to hold seats on the UN bodies. This is another example of just how ineffective the United Nations is. Look at Sudan and the Darfur genocide that started in 2003 is going on right now. Mass killings, ethnic cleansing by the militias. The UN's response? Years of debate before deploying peacemakers, or peacekeepers as they call them. And then you had weak mandates and poor enforcement. Again, corruption. Now you look at all of that, add in Venezuela, and then look at what happened in the Middle East. One other thing that people don't like to talk about is the Hamas operatives that actually infiltrated dozens of UN-affiliated aid groups in Gaza between 2018 and 2022. They embedded personnel into senior positions to direct humanitarian operations on the ground and ensure that the groups served Hamas, the terrorist organization's interests, and internal security documents even uncovered all of this by Israeli forces. What did the UN do? Not a damn thing. So here we are with a president that is saying a couple of different things. One, I'm going to keep America safe at all costs, and that includes dealing with the Arctic. And I'm going to put together a good group of people for peace in the world because the United Nations is, well, worthless.
Thank you for listening to the 47 Morning Update with Ben Ferguson. Please make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. And for more in-depth news, Also, subscribe to the Ben Ferguson podcast, and we will see you back here on Monday morning.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.